Hey guys, thanks for joining me on the Math Egghead channel. This is Eggy. Just a quick reminder, a heads up, this channel is going to be a helpful resource for you guys if you guys have any questions in math. If you guys have any specific questions with homework or something on a test, always feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy and try to get this question on the actual channel and show you how to solve it. In the description below, you are going to see a couple of ways to contact me. I have a Facebook page, I have Instagram, and I also have my email there. So always feel free to contact me if you have a question. The first topic that I think we are going to become masters in are the linear equations. So let's try something really simple. Let's say we got 2 plus 10 is 12. Well, duh. Most of you guys know that, right? 2 plus 10 is 12. What if I threw in the letter X? How would you guys solve that? Well, the first thing you would want is to isolate the X, because you don't know what X is. And when when professors are telling you what you do on one side, you have to do on the other side, what they mean is the equation is always separated by the equal sign. So that way you will know that this is one side of the equation and this is the other side. Okay, guys, so you're trying to solve for X. Now, what we want to do is isolate the X. We don't know what X is. We know that the answer is 12. There's a 10 and there's a 2X involved. So the easiest thing to do first would be subtract the 10. Now, you see how we have a 10. It's plus 10. How do you get rid of a 10? Well, you have to minus the 10. And whatever we do on the left side, we have to do on the right side. So we minus this. 12 minus 10 equals 2. So what do you have then? You rewrite everything. You have 2x equals 2. Now, we still don't know what x is. We're trying to isolate the x. All around here, the 2x, this is a multiplication happening between the 2 and the x, right? Because, for example, if you had 2 divided by x, this is clearly a division. But here, this is a multiplication. So how do you get rid of a multiplication? You divide. So you divide 2 because you're still trying to isolate the x. So you divide 2 here and you divide 2 here. Well, what happens here? 2 divided by 2 is 1. Bring down the x. Here, 2 divided by 2, 1. So the 1 in front of the x, which is the variable, usually is really never written because it's always assumed. If you don't see anything in front of the x, you can always assume that there's a 1. So here in this equation, x equals 1. Now let's say you wanted to double check what was happening. You go ahead and you rewrite the question. 2x plus 10 equals 12. 2, we know that x is 1 plus 10 equals 12. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 10 equals 12. And there's your answer. Now, let's try something else. let's try, let's see, I just want to make sure that we're focused. Okay. So let's try let's try a subtraction now. Let's say we had 5. We can throw in any equation. Let's throw another x. 5x plus 20 equals 45. Right? Oh, I said we were going to do subtraction. Okay, well, the next one. So what will we do here? If you want to take a few minutes, pause the video, work on the problem, and then come back. Now, the first step, remember, always divide where the equal sign is, right? Because you want to know your left from your right. Now, we want to isolate the x, but the x right now is attached to the 5. So we have to wait on that. Plus 20 is easy, right? All we would have to do is, how do we get rid of a 20? Well, we subtract it. We spend it, right? So here it would be 0. And then what you do on the left side, you have to do on the right side. So you minus 20. Here it would be 25, right? So rewrite everything so everything looks neat. 5x equals 25. Now, we still have this x here, right? Well, what's happening between the 5 and the x? Is this a multiplication? Is this an addition, a subtraction, a division? This is a multiplication here, 5x, right? Because 5 times something is giving us 25. Not 5 divided by something, not 5 adding or subtracting something equals 20. It's 5 times something in here is equal 25. Now, let's say you're thinking, well, Eggy, I want to see if this is correct. Then you would write the equation again. 5x plus 20 equals 45. You know what x is now. It takes one x, right? So this time you want to know what 5 x's are. So 5 times 5 plus 20 equals 45. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 20 equals 45. Worked out. Okay, guys, let's try a subtraction. Let's say you had something, let's try 3 now, right? Let's say you had 3x minus, let's say 15. Equals 30. Are we in focus here? Now we are. Okay. So let's say, having some. Okay, guys. So we're starting off with the problem 3x minus 15 equals 30. Take a few minutes, work on this problem, pause the video, and then come back, compare the answers. So the first thing is that you divide the equation, meaning you know what your left is from your right. And remember, I said that you can always separate the equation where the equal sign is, right? So you know that this is to your left, this is to your right. And it'll be vice versa. Sometimes you'll have professors write this. Which equals the same thing as this. Now, let's work on this. So the first thing, remember, we always want to isolate the x. Right now, the x is being multiplied by the 3. So we don't work with that one as of yet. We get rid of the negative 15 or the minus 15 in this case. So how do you get to 0? Well, you usually do the opposite of what the sign is that's attached to the number, right? So here you have minus 15. So you would add 15 just to get 0. And remember, what you do to one side, you have to do it to the right side, which is where your answer is. So you rewrite the equation again. 3x equals 45. Now remember, this is a multiplication. So how do you get rid of a multiplication? You divide. Remember, you're trying to isolate the x, so you wouldn't divide an x by the x to isolate it. You want to get rid of whatever is surrounding it. So in this case, it's a 3 times x. So divide by x. So 3 divided by 3, that's 1. Remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So 45 divided by 3, that's going to be 15. So x equals 15. Now, just in case you want to go ahead and show your professor your work, which you always should, you would just plug the 15 again. So 3x, which we know what x is, so it's 3x minus 15 equals 30. So here, 3 times 15, we know it's 45, minus 15 equals 30. So it works out. Let's work on something like this. And that'll be our last problem. Let's say your professor gave you the answer first and said, okay, how would you do this? Now, regardless if the answer is on the right or left, doesn't matter. You can always separate the equation where the equal sign is, right? So this is your left side, this is your right side. So what you would do is you would go ahead, you want to isolate the x first, but right now you see that the x is attached to the 3. So here you just have the 12. And let's say you don't see a symbol of a addition or a subtraction or a negative or a positive. Well, if you don't see anything here and it's next to the equal sign, you can always assume that it's a positive or an addition, right? Because usually if it's a negative number, it'll say it's negative 12 or subtract 12, always. So since there isn't anything that's attached, you can always assume that this is a positive or an addition. So you would minus 12 here and then minus 12 here. So this is 0. So this is 48. Now, we just rewrite. I always like to rewrite my equations just so that I can see exactly what's happening here. So in this case, this is still a multiplication. So you would just divide it by 3. But remember, you have a symbol here. This is a subtraction. So some of you guys might be familiar with the negative and the positive charges or negative sign and positive sign. I'm going to assume that you guys know what that is, but if you don't, I will have a separate video explaining the negative and the positive signs when you're subtracting, dividing, multiplying, and adding. So whatever we divide here, we have to divide it again so that we can get a 1. So we're not just going to only divide it by a 3, excuse me. We have to divide it by a -3 so that we can cancel out these subtractions and then also cancel out these, meaning that negative and a negative is 1, and then 3 and 3 is 1. So you're just left with the x. But remember, you have to divide here on your left side. So here it's going to be -16 equals x. Now I know that problem might have been a little difficult for some. Again, there is going to be a video that I upload that explains the negative and the positive signs on the numbers, and you're going to... Okay guys, so let's go ahead and solve. We already solved for x. We are going to now test out if this is real, if this is the correct answer. So 60 equals 12 minus 3 times -16. Okay. So we know that -3 times -16, remember that the symbol here, any number that's attached to an addition or a plus sign or a minus sign, that's their sign. Meaning that if this would have been +3, that means that it would have been a +3, or the addition sign would have been attached to the number 3. Here we have a subtraction, meaning a minus, meaning a negative. So -3 times -16 is +48. So 60 equals 12 plus 48, and that does equal 60. Now again, guys, my information will be down at the bottom in the description box. My email, my Facebook, and I believe my Instagram will also be attached. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions, if you have a homework question or a test coming up. Feel free to always reach out to me. I will be more than happy to help.